Let's create a program that prompts the user to enter in the size of an array that we want to create, and that array will hold an array of objects. So I'm going to go ahead and create a new project. I'm going to call this project, let's call it AskArraySizeObjects. AskArraySizeObjects. Sort of a big name, but it's at least descriptive. I'll click Finish, and first thing I want to do is go create my class. So I'll go to the package, right mouse click on the package, and choose a new Java class, and we'll call this Teams, and I'll click Finish. Now within Teams, I'm going to go ahead and add some attributes. I'm going to add the team name as a string, and I'll add the wins as an int and the losses as an int. What I could do is actually make these all of private scope, meaning they're only going to be visible within that class. And then I could go write getters and setters for each of the attributes, and I could even create constructors. Well, I really don't want to type all that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come within my class and right mouse click and choose Insert Code. So you chose, once again, let me back up. You do a right mouse click, Insert Code. And we could say, let's go create getters and setters. And I want to create getters and setters for every attribute in that class. I'll click Generate, and it writes all the code for me. That's pretty exciting. You'll probably get upset at your teacher now because your teacher's been making you write all that code. Let's create a constructor. Right mouse click, Insert Code. Let's go create a constructor. And we want that constructor to not receive any parameters, so I'll leave them all unchecked and click Generate. That makes an empty constructor. Let's do another constructor. Right mouse click, Insert Code, and let's say in this one we want to receive just the team name, and I'll click Generate. Now we have an overloaded constructor where this one actually receives one parameter. Notice what it names the parameter, same name as the attribute. Then we take that attribute and store it to the object attribute. We know it's the object attribute because of the keyword this. So I've shown you how to create a class pretty easily. All you do is create your attributes and then let NetBeans help you generate all the source code that goes inside of it. Let's go back to our main object, or our main file now, and within our main file we want to prompt the user for how many objects we need to create. So I'm going to go ahead and create a variable. I'll call it iArraySize. We're going to need a scanner object, and I'm going to create two scanner objects, one for my ints and one for my strings, and that way I don't have to worry about flushing the buffer. So scanner OI scan equals new scanner system.in, and I'm going to get an error message. So I'll click on that little button over here and choose Add the Import. Notice it adds the import for the scanner right there. And I'm going to create another scanner object, OS scan equals new scanner system.in. I now have two scanner objects, and now I want to create the array of objects. Well, creating the array of objects says that I have to know the size, and if I don't know the size, I just simply specify that I'm making an array. You specify the data type of the array. If it was going to be string, you'd say string, int, int. In this case, we want team objects, so I specify teams, square bracket. I give it a name, AO teams, and if I did that, that simply says, let's create a variable called AO teams that someday will be an array of team objects. Now let's ask the user how many objects we need to create. How many teams? And I need the variable iArraySize is equal to OI scan.next int. That will get the array size. Now we need to go ahead and specify the array size. AO teams equals new teams, and then the size of the array that the user wants us to enter. This line declares the array. This line sizes the array. But remember, nothing's in it yet, just null values. We don't have any objects. So we still have to load up all those objects. To do so, I can do it in a for loop. Or I'll declare my variable that will just be local to the loop. And I'll say as long as that variable is less than the array length, we want to stay in the loop. And then we'll prompt the user to enter in the name. Enter the team name. And we want to actually now get the input from the keyboard. But when we get the input from the keyboard for the team name, we want to store that to the team name attribute for that array object. So first thing you have to do though is you have to have an object in the array. AO teams square bracket iCount, which says go out to the array and go to position iCount. First time through it's 0. Create an object, new, and pass it the constructor, which is the name of the class. Now that's one way we could do it. And then we could come in here and say AO teams bracket iCount bracket iCount dot set team name is equal to OS scan dot next line. And that will say get the data from the keyboard, call the set team method, and store it to the current object you're working with. The other thing you could do is actually create a variable up here of type string steam name. I'm going to comment these lines out so you still see that. You've seen those in a different video. And we'll say steam name equals OS scan next line. Now that we have the team name typed in from the keyboard stored to the variable team name, now we could go ahead and create the object by calling the constructor that receives the team name as a parameter. Remember, if you look back over in the teams class, we said create a constructor that receives the team name and restore it to the attribute of the team name for the current object. This would now load up all the data. If I ran that, I should be able to say we want 2 teams. The first team name is BYU, second team name is WSU, and that loads up the array of objects by letting the user specify the size and then us calling the constructor. Once again, realize there's 2 different ways you could have done that. You could have just used the default constructor and then call the set team name method, or just create a constructor that receives one parameter and let it assign the attribute to the object.